Hello and welcome to the Monster Mechanics Podcast, where we take creatures of myth and media and see how they can be improved. I am your host, Scott Paladin, and with me as always is the cheese to my macaroni, Zach Jakeways. What are we talking about today, Zach?
This week we're talking about the Dullahan.
All right, so the Dullahan, where if you are a native speaker of the dialect we're coming from, the sort of Scots Celtic area, and you're telling us we're mispronouncing it, that's totally fine. We absolutely are. We're going to get it wrong. I'm just getting that out of the way.
Yeah, my Gaelic is a little rusty.
Yeah. So the Dullahan is it's a fearsome creature of Celtic myth. It is the headless horseman is the easiest way to describe it. It's usually a figure that rides around on a horse, usually a big black, like shadowy creature. And its most notable feature is that it carries around its head in its hand. Usually, you see the stump coming out of its shoulders, and then there will be a head that it carries. Usually, it's got glowing eyes and stuff too, and
the head's supposed to be kind of rotted and whatnot in some depictions or myth.
And it's kind of unclear. There's multiple variants of like this is just a creature that looks like that versus this is like a particular person who has died and is then trying to claim the souls of other people. Sometimes it has a cart that it like drives around as opposed to riding on a horse. It's got some metal ass attributes, like sometimes it uses a human spine as a whip.
Which I feel like there's some logistics there that
human spines. Yeah, they're not really whip-like, but that is a really cool image.
Yeah.
And then sometimes its wagon is said to be covered in like skulls that have candles in their eye sockets and stuff.
It's like a traveling goth stagecoach. Just got all kinds of manner of grimdark equipment with it.
It's funny because despite this being kind of in my wheelhouse of Celtic myth, I actually mostly know this creature from anime tropes. Like it keeps showing up in basically it comes up as an anime girl all the time with a detached head. Very strange way to have approached this creature. And I don't think it's going to be helpful here at all.
Yeah, I feel like the anime approach to monsters in many cases is how can we make this sexy?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think that's strictly speaking anime because, like, YA novels are all about Halloween monsters in various forms of sexy. I think the only one that I haven't seen done really well is Mummies. I think all the other ones have been approached at this point.
I don't know. I would kind of be on board for, like, the Dullahan being the new vampire.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, the legend also holds some similarity with the Banshee or some sort of like some cross-pollination because one of the things that gets brought up is that it will call your name and then like draw the soul out of you. So that's cool.
Definitely a harbinger of death kind of thing.
Exactly. I mean, really, it's a scary story creature. Like it's meant to be like told around the campfire and scare the kids. And that's a worthy purpose in and of itself is just to be scary.
It's always a good idea to scare kids.
Before we get, I mean, we're going to have to talk about this thing as a truly supernatural creature because I just have a list of objections to any sort of actual biological creature that has a detached head.
Unless the creature is some sort of infection or microorganism that inhabits a corpse.
Yeah, maybe. But like, so taking it from the obvious, if this is just an actual, like a humanoid creature that has a detached head, ignoring the fact that it can't breathe, or maybe it could breathe through its stump, but it can't give a blood supply to its own head. It also probably can't chew and eat. Let's ignore that. One of the really basic things is it will fall over all of the time because we rely so much on our inner ear for balance that if you were to take it off of our head, and even if he was holding it in his hand, I think that totally screws up your balance loop to the point where you are just going to like not be able to walk around, and let alone ride a horse. Like your ability to actually like control your own body, even if you have some way to get the signals across, I don't think that works anymore.
Maybe the horse is the Dullahan and the body is some sort of
a protuberance.
Yeah, protuberance or some sort of malformed centaur experience.
I did have the idea that you could have a creature that there are some creatures that subdivide as a form of reproduction where like it grows up as a single body, and then at some point in order to become two creatures it like just breaks off a limb. Certain kinds of flatworms I think pull that move. Not particularly complex creatures, but there's nothing to say I think that you couldn't do it with a complex creature. But none of those then like remain as a symbiotic organism once it has divided itself. And that's actually kind of an interesting concept on the face of it. Like if you had a creature that like grew up, maybe it's, I mean, the head is just the stupidest part to do that from like a survival form. Cause like you don't want to put all of your sense organs on their own like immobile creature, like that has to be carried around in hand. It seems like that would be much more useful to just leave on top of the head. But if you had a creature that was, let's say 8-limbed, like it had like a spider that like splits in half and then has 2 mobile versions of itself, and it uses that essentially as a single organism that pack hunts. But each of those would still have to be like, unless we're, calling in magical bullshit, each of those are just its own creature that share a genome at that point and then work closely together. I don't think they're the same creature in and of itself. Although, holy crap, if the Dullahan, you like it loses its head and then the head gets spider feet on the bottom of it and then it's mobile, that's a version I could get behind.
I don't like that at all.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, okay, so you could imagine a version of it where it's like, this is some sort of creature that at some point it separates its head and then maybe the like the chest area has its own like sense organs and or intake organs. Like it can do its own like the where the head should be, there's just a big mawing mouth, like where the neck should start. You just have like a mouth there for feeding. And then the head is like a little like a scout or something. Like it is moving around and like somehow communicating back to the original body where the
interesting,
where the prey is. That could be kind of cool. I wonder if there are some ways that those two organisms could communicate, which are what's the way to put this, that would seem as though they are like telepathically linked still. I think you would still have to have a brain in both sides, but like if one of them was using like really ultra high pitched sound to communicate, like constantly feedback information to the original, like something like in the echolocation range, then it could seem like information that was, when the head sees something that the body was then able to like react to it as though that it was actually seeing it. So there's a way to make that work, but you have to really stretch this idea in order to like make it work as a biological thing.
I mean, maybe the head has like one tooth that's made of like sapphire. Okay. So it's got Bluetooth.
Boo. Go to pun jail.
Oh.
Although, I mean, there's no reason that a biological creature couldn't use radio if it like developed the right kind of, it's just electrical impulses. You need a fair amount of electrical power to do it. But theoretically, you could have a biological creature that did that. But I'm coming around to the idea that this has got to be some sort of ghost, right? Like this thing is a spirit or something, right?
Yeah, probably. Like, I mean, if the idea is it's a dead guy on a horse.
Mm-hmm. I do like your idea that the horse is the real monster. Like, yeah. That brings us into not Selkie, the other one, Kelpie. Brings us into Kelpie territory a little bit. Kelpies are it's another Gaelic "this will kill you" spirit, where it's a horse that tries to get you to ride it, and if you get on its back, it will drown you. Like it will.
Interesting.
And the worst part about it is that it's sticky. Like if you get on it, it starts to like fuse your body to it, so that it like so that you can't get off, and that's how it drowns you. It like drags you underneath the water that way.
That's interesting. Maybe there's a variant that gets you decapitated.
Yeah. Okay, so if this is a Kelpie, that maybe I got to make sure I'm doing that right. My brain is just doubting my own.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Okay, I got it right. Kelpie. Yeah. The number of times I've gotten Kelpie and Selkie flipped in my head means that I can no longer doubt when I just remember it. I have to look it up every time. For the record, Selkies are seals that take off their skins to become human. And we'll get to them later.
Yeah, there's an episode there.
Yeah. Okay, so we're thinking maybe
for now we're dealing with the sticky horse.
Yeah, sticky water horse.
Yes.
You've got this creature that gets people to ride it and then drags them into a river or lake to drown them, and then I guess are like symbiotically feasting off of their body. Like they're literally like digesting them from below, I guess, and like letting them rot on their backs.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of an interesting idea. Like, I do like the idea that it's doing something to like make use of the body, like while it's attached.
Yeah. I feel like this. I want to push this again. The more biological it feels, the less I'm cool with it, because this is it's so wild to think of a way that this could have evolved.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to push this in the realm of like, this is something to do with like, you know, this has got to be something with the spirit world, and we can invoke a little bit of magical bullshit and then just give like some rules around it and systematize it a little bit. I definitely like the idea that when one of these is created, it's through the Kelpie myth. Like okay. So twisting the Kelpie myth, it's that it doesn't necessarily always drown you. That when you encounter one of these creatures, it's going to kill you some way. And that the two most common versions of it are you're going to get drowned, or it's going to run your ass into a tree and like get you, like knock your head off of your shoulders just with like strength. And like, obviously you don't get away with it because you don't just fall off because you are now fused to this thing. So I think that feels like it's got all of the sort of narrative shape of something that happens to a sinner, like a bad person who, like you do enough bad things in your life that one of these horses seeks you out in order to like make you into a demon of an object of vengeance, to punish other. Like this becomes it's a little bit Ghost Rider. It's a little bit, you get the you're an asshole who gets the spirit of vengeance and then have to kill people.
It's kind of cool. I also like the idea that like maybe the Kelpie was like in the original myth was like something that was like transport your soul to hell or something.
Oh, yeah.
Because it would show up while the person was still alive. Like, well, I got to kill you first to take you to hell.
Yeah.
And maybe maybe somewhere along the line, like the function got corrupted or distorted, and like it could no longer transport these souls to hell. So they're just kind of persisting as these vengeful spirits.
What if one of the weird aspects of the Divine Comedy by Dante is that he just like put like living people in hell? He's like, you can just go to hell like while you're alive. You don't have to die. And so what if when you are in the cosmos of the world we're creating, if you are a bad enough person, that one of these will show up to just take you to hell. You don't die necessarily. It just is going to drag your ass there. You get on the horse and it's going to physically take you to the physical place of hell in this universe, right? And what happens is if you die along the way, then the system gets broken a little bit and you become one of these Dullahans.
Oh, interesting. I like that because the Dullahan itself is supposed to be like a harbinger of death. Like,
yes.
So the Selkie or whatever that was originally supposed to be transporting souls to hell is like, well, better make the best of a bad situation here and just use this dead guy to help me in my work.
I think this is a sort of like, this is your like, okay. So that you're supposed to be dragged to hell while still alive. And so you're supposed to have some amount of time of your life that was spent in hell. And if you die along the way, you've sort of cheated hell out of punishing you for that. Like you've gotten out of your punishment. If they took you to hell, you would now be dead, which is, I assume, somewhat not as bad as being alive in hell. Being dead in hell seems better to me than being alive in hell. I don't know why that makes sense, but it does. So sort of cosmically, they're like, okay, now you have to make up for the fact that you got out of some of your punishment, and you have to work. You are now a psychopomp. Like you are now somebody who works with the Kelpie that was supposed to bring you to hell alive, and you are going to be dragging other sinners to hell yourself. Like you are now, they put you to work until you've paid off the debt that you owe. I think that could work.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a cool idea. Okay, but how does the spine whip factor in?
So the metal version of it is that it's their own spine. Like they rip their own, like the head comes off and then they rip actually, I think the spine whip, maybe it's something, because you are absolutely right that human spines don't work that way. Like, you know, they kind of flop around, but it's more like a, I'm having a hard time describing what a articulated spine is like. It's like a lamp, like one of those like tube lamps that you can like move, but it doesn't like flop,
Yeah.
So I imagine that like maybe that's something that they make or that gets that they incarnate or something like that. Maybe, an old school option of that is they have like they have a whip, like they make themselves a whip or they get a whip when they become a Dullahan. And then for every soul that they drag to hell, they remove one vertebrae from that person and they like thread it onto the whip or like weave it into the whip itself.
That's kind of cool.
And so the more as they fill out the whip, that is how close they are to finishing out their task. And also makes it more dangerous. Like it's got now like spikes and on it that's going to make it like more dangerous to the people that they're hitting it with. So you can kind of like, you could almost at a glance look at a Dullahan and be like, oh, you're new. You have a big long whip that's not full of vertebrae yet. Or like you see the Danny Glover one who's too old for this and one day away from retirement. And he's got, an entire 12-foot long whip full of vertebrae that he's got like ready to go.
Just 2 more reapings before retirement.
Exactly. Yeah, that's pretty cool. We could work with that.
Yeah. So there's another interesting aspect of the Dullahan that we didn't touch on earlier, and that is that it is repelled by gold.
Yes, I saw that. This reminds me of the other precious metal allergies that we know of, which is silver.
Yeah.
But gold is, I guess, like gold is the one-upmanship of silver, or
I feel like there's definitely like some ties to like gold and the sun. So maybe there's like a metaphorical bond there, or
because I would love to do an angle where it's like instead of being repelled by gold, that they can just be bribed. Like you can straight up just hand them money and or other valuables, make sacrifices in order to get them off your back for a while, not forever.
Interesting.
Like you won't ever truly get them away, but if you hand them a sack of gold, they will disappear and give you another couple of months until they find you again.
It's an interesting idea.
Yeah, that feels very old school to me. That like if you that leads to a fun like a myth where you're always supposed to carry a gold coin with you or some gold object and you're never supposed to spend it or trade it away or let it be lost or anything like that, because if a Dullahan finds you, you need something to like pay them off and get away.
That does kind of go back to the ferryman myth as well.
Yeah, Karen. And there's variants of that all over the place. Yeah, where you they put coins on the soul on the over the eyes of dead people in order to pay the ferryman to carry their souls across to the afterlife.
What if the Dullahan can't take a piece like a chunk of your spine or whatever if you pay him? So like your way for a peaceful transition to the afterlife in this manner is if you pay the Dullahan to transport you. If you don't have the payment, he'll exact his toll in another way.
Oh yeah, so he's demanding payment right now.
Yeah, basically the easy way or the hard way, and the easy way is to pay him.
I like the idea maybe there's more than one option where like he can take you to hell the hard way, where he like hits you with his whip and then like rips a section of your spine out and then carries your ass back to hell. Or you can pay him to like be nicer to you and he takes you to hell. Or one option is that you like hand him the gold and then while he's distracted putting it in his sack, you run away. And that gives you some time because he's going to come after you still. But if I was writing this as a fairy tale, the version of it that's the smart guy's version. And what he then does is like, oh shit, I'm bound for hell, and changes his ways. Like goes and repents his sins and starts to do good work. And if he can stay ahead of the Dullahan long enough, he can make it up. And then when the Dullahan comes for him, he goes peacefully and is taken to heaven instead. Like it can act as in the space of a story. It can act as like your come to Jesus moment. And you're like, oh, shit. Like I am going to go to hell for the rest of my life. In fact, they were going to drag me there while I was still alive. And I better turn things around, Jean Valjean style. Like Dullahan is Javert in this scenario. I'd watch that.
Yeah,
that'd be badass.
So one of the other elements that's kind of mentioned is like the stagecoach or cart that's been run. And I like the idea that maybe this coach is laden down with all the treasures and gold it's collected along the way, maybe.
Ooh, that has other narrative elements, because if you get close enough, you could steal from him. You could steal from the Dullahan, but that's like, like it's big risk, right? Like if you get caught in the act, like, guess what's going to happen? He's going to hit you with his whip and drag your ass to hell. Or add you to his cart. Like now maybe that's where the skulls come from. Like he doesn't normally get skulls when he's like just transporting people to hell. But the people he catches, he just puts your head on the side of the cart and then you slowly rot into a skull.
Ooh, I like that.
I like that. Okay. So that explains why some Dullahans don't have a cart and some of them do, is that if you're fresh and new and haven't been paid very much, you can just keep all of your treasures, all of your payments in just a sack on your saddlebags. And then over time, eventually you're like, no, I need a cart for this shit because it's too heavy. And so like those are the old school Dullahans who are like, so like they're the ones with the whips that are full of vertebrae because they've been at this a long time.
Yeah, I like that.
That they like this. Like it's still reliant on magical bullshit. Like this is all just a, it's man, somebody's barking out there. We were talking about the Dullahan, the old school Dullahans who have the carts, who've been like fully laden and paid. I like that. That the longer they've been at this, maybe that's why they're gathering the money, is that they're going to pay the devil to like pay off their own debt.
I like that.
Like this is all of the stuff that they are gathering up to give to, as a penance for all of the things that they did in life. Literally paying off your sins is totally a very like old school Christian value. Like I know what oh crap, I can't remember the name for it now. The thing that Martin Luther was really pissed about, indulgences, was an old school Catholic practice where you literally just paid the Pope and you were like, hey, I have some sins. Here's a big stack of cash for you to absolve them. And they're like, thanks, Bo. And then they would just like, yep, you're out, you're done.
Yeah. Good job. You seem reformed to me.
Exactly. So, but yeah, I like the idea that you literally have to, like, not only are you having to gather souls, but you're like getting money from them in order to pay off the devil. That seems very old school to me.
Yeah, I like that.
Ooh, could these also be the same guys that, since essentially we've built them into psychopomps? By the way, if I've used the word psychopomp previously in this episode, a psychopomp is a creature that takes souls to the afterlife. So Karen is thought of as a psychopomp. Hermes is a psychopomp. There's the Madidu, which is a dog that does the same job. There's, like almost every myth has some version of this idea where it's like it's a particular creature or spirit or something whose job is to like take the souls to the next world. So we've sort of built ourselves a Dullahan psychopomp, which I think is cool.
Yeah.
Could these be the guys that like you can challenge to a game of chance to sometimes get away?
Interesting.
Because they're kind of avaricious, right? Like where if they get more money out of the thing, then they're happier because they're going to be able to pay off their debt sooner. So it seems like they would be susceptible to, well, I'll double or nothing, if you want, I would normally give you this much for you to go away. I could give you double that, or we could play a game of chess to see like who is the better person, or some dice or something like that.
I feel like there's bargaining with the creature who can just say your name and kill you is a little. I
mean, it's a very bold move, right? Like that's an audacious thing to do, is to be like, I know that you have all of the power in this scenario right here, but what if I offered you a deal?
What kind of game would the Dullahan engage in? Like,
yeah, I feel like it's got to be pure chance. So it's not a game of chess. It's not Go or anything like that where there's a strategy that you can employ. It's got to be something like dice or cards. Dice are really good because they got that kind of bony quality, like they're dice often were made of bone back before plastic was a thing. So, oh man, I wonder if you could have a okay, this is a weird pull. Do you know there's a game where you, instead of rolling dice, you roll pigs, tiny plastic pigs?
Yes, I remember that from my youth. God, what was it called?
I don't remember, but there's like,
I feel like it was something like really on the nose, like Stack the Pig or something.
Yeah, Pass the Pigs.
There you go.
Is a commercial version of the dice game Pig. That seems weird. Like if you could have something like that, but like they've carved bone, like phalanges or something like that, small bones, into shapes that land in certain configurations. That seems like a very cool, it's a very gothic, macabre version of Pass the Pig, but like made all metal.
Yeah, playing Knuckles with the Dullahan.
Oh, Knuckles is a good name for it. Yeah. And like, depending on how, like, it's a game of how they land and like how many points you get. I love the idea that, if I remember correctly, Pass the Pig is a push your luck style game. You can keep going as long as you don't get the bad result. And that seems to be appropriate for this idea. It's like you are pushing your luck with this whole thing about like it being like worse. Maybe it's one of those things where, you know, like, again, like if you don't have any gold with you, then you can try playing for it you play Knuckles. And what ends up happening, what you're doing is like gambling a worse punishment or getting away. Like if you win, you get away. If you lose, then it's all the worse for you. Like you not only get dragged to hell, but like your finger bones get added to the Knuckles game. Like, or something along those lines. Or like you know, like it's about you are gambling additional years in hell before you can leave or something like that.
I'm liking how bone themed this guy is.
Yeah. I mean, well, because we went to the natural place because he starts with a freaking spine whip and like a skull covered wagon. That seems like appropriate for it to be heavily boned theme. I like the idea that the Dullahan's body keeps rotting. Like they died on their way to hell, and their body is like breaking down over time, and they're still walking around as a member of the undead, like doing their job. So old Dullahans are going to be very bony and skeletal themselves. Like they're going to be all the flesh will have rotted off of them and stuff. Ooh, can you imagine like a particularly old Dullahan? Like this is our, you know, 2 reapings away from retirement guy who's like been doing this forever, to the point where like he's just down to the skeleton, and to the point where even the connective tissue that holds the skeleton together isn't holding together too well, and he's wired himself together with gold wire.
Ooh, I like that.
That's cool. I love that image.
The Kintsugi Dullahan.
Yeah, exactly. And he's got staples like holding his ribs together, but they're all gold. That's great. Yeah. Bone. I do like the bone thing, that they're very much into like bones as payment and tools and like and stuff like that. That's really cool. It reminds me as the copy pasta that goes around the internet where it's like, oh yeah, the tooth fairy, which is just the less scary juvenile form of the bone fairy.
Yeah. Not quite as awful as the skin fairy.
Let's see. What are there any other angles we can take on this guy real quick? We've got like I think we've got a good set of rules around like what happens when you encounter one of these things. And presumably if you live a worthy life, like that's also a defense against them. Like showing up and being like, well, yeah, but like I'm a good guy. Like I've given to the chair. Or this is one other time when I wish I was a songwriter, because writing a little like a song which is about telling the Dullahan that you have no money because you gave it away that would be a fun little like part of the world to have.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like, it's a song that everybody knows, like, or like a nursery rhyme almost, where it's like, you know, like my pockets are empty. I've turned them out because all of that has been given to the poor, the less needy, or like, because I just bought bread to give to the hungry and stuff like that. That'd be fun. That's a good world moment.
Maybe it's like sort of like almost a tale of warning about hoarding wealth.
Oh yeah.
Because like maybe in this instance, like rather than being repelled by gold, like Dullahans are attracted to it.
Yeah.
And so they always come for the wealthy man. And it's also more like a commentary on like how wealthy men are more likely to have, you know, committed a bunch of crimes and whatnot to get where they are.
Yeah. And in fact, in that way, it can become a very anti-capitalist message of like the very act of having money that you can't make use of. Like the idea that like billionaires by their existence are evil, like just because that money could be better spent by other people. And so it's the same sort of idea that like, if you've got more than you need, if you've got more than you can use, then it is your moral obligation to, you know, give that away and to rid yourself of the evil that is money. And that like people who are like that in life are the ones who end up becoming Dullahans, you know, that like, Which makes an interesting idea, because what happens is that you then spend a segment of your afterlife again gathering money. If you're a Dullahan who like was super greedy in life, you spend a big section of it gathering money in order to give it away at the end. Like you are.
There's definitely a poetic notion to that. I like that.
And so maybe there's a conflict. Like everybody, I love the idea of myths where everybody argues about all of the details. And so like everybody agrees that Dullahans, you can pay them off, that they hoard gold, that they've got it all the time. But like everybody argues about, some of them say, oh no, they're paying the devil to get out of hell. Like they're paying the devil to get off their debt. And the other people are like, no. They're gathering up until they know they have enough to make up for their sins, at which point they give it away. And like they become like, they have to do one big last charitable act to make the ledger square.
Oh, I like that. I love that there's like maybe some huge anonymous donation made to a church or an orphanage or something.
Exactly.
And there's like this legend about how that's the Dullahans work.
Yeah. In fact, maybe an anonymous donation is sometimes marked out, like it's a real anonymous donation that came from a lord or something like that, but they mark it in like the name of a Dullahan. Like they say that this was left by the headless man.
Oh, I like that.
As a way of saying it's anonymous. Yeah, that's cool. I could totally dig that. I love the idea that it's of conflicting natures. Like some people believe one thing, some people believe the other.
No, I think that's a really cool idea.
Yeah. I think we've pretty well systematized this idea. It's still, I mean, like we haven't really contradicted much other than of the original legend. Like we're still sort of, this is all just built on top of it, which is good. Yeah, I like this. This is cool.
Yeah. Are there any other elements we want to touch on this?
I still think they would fall over if their inner ear is obviously then they're relying on the inner ear of the horse creature that they're fused with. All right. Now I think we've pretty well covered these guys.
Excellent.
All right. Well, bye.
Until next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Monster Mechanics. I am pleased because we have a 5-star review over on Podchaser. And since we don't have a lot of these so far, I'm going to read it out here as a way to say thank you. One of those podcasts that I think works amazingly well at being both good background noise and good to focus on intently. The two oddly dichotomous ways of listening to podcasts. By the end of each episode, you'll have an interesting take on a classic monster and/or a handful of awesome ideas to spin into something else. A fantastic place to go for concepts for your own TTRPG ideas or fiction writings, or some soothing voices to listen to. Either way, highly recommend it. Thank you, The Dark Fiddler. That means just the world to myself and Zach. You made our day, probably our week, by leaving us that review. If you'd like to join them and hopefully help our podcast find some new ears, you can do so on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. Anyway, on to the credits. Monster Mechanics is produced and edited by me, Scott Paladin, and hosted by myself and my best friend, Zach Jaquays. All of the ideas generated during this podcast are released under a Do What the F You Want public license.